All right, joining me now, Grant Afseth, covering the Dallas Mavericks for Dallas Basketball. Grant, thank you so much for stopping by. Really appreciate you and all the coverage that you're going to do for the Mavericks this year.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really look forward to being a repeated guest talking about the Mavs and joining all the the awesome people that cover other teams that you have involved. With the other 30, or I should say 29 other teams for sure.
It's going to be fun. There's a lot of cool people that are associated with this project, but let's talk about the Mavs. Let's talk about what I think has been 0-3 to start preseason, and we're recording this on October 14th. That uh, probably not the way that the Mavs were hoping the preseason would go, if I'm being honest. Just the way that things have kind of strung out. But what's the most interesting thing about the team right now from your perspective?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for them right now is that both of their superstars are dealing with like day-to-day injuries, and there was a lot of talk about the importance of having a full training camp, with those guys to be able to build chemistry not only with each other but with the team as a whole. They made a lot of roster changes this offseason. They, didn't have a great opportunity to build continuity after that midseason trade last year, so this was going to be their chance to, install everything that they needed to install in the offense, build some continuity, get the rotations down defensively. But a 12-day international preseason trip definitely makes it more challenging to have that
Yeah.
sort of comfortable, like regular environment where you're not having those full practices. You're doing a lot of different things than you normally would. It's more about team bonding with like team dinners and just long plane rides and sightseeing together, as opposed to really buckling down and getting all of the X's and O's and all the little details on court work that you would typically do. Like, say, if you're like the team that you're focused on, like the Denver Nuggets having a training camp, in North America. So yeah, it'll be interesting because there's not a lot of clarity right now on those injuries either. So we, like this upcoming week, as you said, we're recording on Saturday, October 14th. They resume practices on Monday, October 16th, and it's still not sure like how much Kyrie Irving or Luka Doncic will be able to participate in those practices, and they have a final preseason game on October 20th before an October 25th opener against Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs.
Yeah.
So it's like their time's kind of been sucked pretty aggressively for their preparation time, when that was kind of packaged as like a big benefit of having like a training camp period.
It's yeah. So this doesn't give me a lot of confidence, if I'm being honest. The where you have a team that finished poorly last year. Obviously, there were some relative shenanigans with maintaining the draft pick that they had, and Kyrie and Luka. Kyrie played really well. Luka didn't play great down the stretch, and you've just got a lot of new faces now. When I was doing the key additions and key losses for this team, I was like, okay, Grant Williams, Seth Curry, Olivier Maxence Prosper, Derek Lively, Derek Jones, Dante Exum. Like, you've got six new guys, I think, that could really see rotation time, unless I'm missing somebody else. But think I'm mostly curious right now, who starts next to Luka and Kyrie? Is it going to be Josh Green, Grant Williams, Dwight Powell? Is that the trio that we're looking at?
Well, for the start of training camp, the locked in starters were, Kyrie, Luka as the backcourt, and then Grant Williams. And then it was kind of about figuring out if Derek Lively can differentiate himself from the other center, potential competition with Rashawn Holmes and Dwight Powell. It sounds like he will be the starter as of
Wow.
like today. Like, it's hard to like say like a lock or anything of that nature, but like in the last like post game, press conference, like to get kind of an update on what Jason Kidd's thinking. He did say when talking about the rookies, Olivier Maxence Prosper and Derek Lively, that Lively's done everything we've asked, and he likely would be the starter on day one, but that Omax will likely come off the bench. So that leaves really just like, as of right now, unless something really just changes in the next like, I guess you could say 11 days or whatever, like the last, small forward spot or potential four spot, because today, Mark Stein reported that Derek Jones is a potential consideration for a starting role as well. And, he did get first team reps in practice, the last practice before the team departed for, like the Middle East and Europe.
Right.
There wasn't a whole lot of opportunity to gain intel or information while the team was abroad, but at least that kind of shows that there was some experimentation in practice time. But it's just interesting because with Omax Prosper, being a likely bench candidate at this point, Josh Green, he's got not too much time left of being contract extension eligible before the season gets going. And, there was a lot of talk about him, like having confidence in his ability to be that like on ball defender to take tough assignments and, potentially start next to Luka and Kyrie. But it doesn't sound like he's necessarily differentiated himself to take on that role as like the clear cut option. So really right now, what we're probably looking at is either Josh Green at the 3 with Grant Williams at the 4, or they get kind of creative or interesting, if you will, with kind of an out of the box option with Derek Jones at the 4 with Grant Williams most likely playing the 3.
Okay. that is interesting. That is not the direction that I thought we'd be going here. And to me, that screams concern. That screams like this could be a potential issue, especially at the beginning of the season, where as poorly as the team finished up last year, you'd want to get off to a good start. You'd want to figure out how to bolster Luka and Kyrie in the best way possible. And I do think that the Grant Williams addition was good. I like Josh Green next to those guys. And I think that the rookies in theory were a good idea. But starting a rookie immediately, especially a 19-year-old center, that's scary. That's a scary prospect for a team like this that has real concerns where you want to make sure to put your best foot forward for a team with 2 legitimate stars. And that seems crazy to me. But okay, I mean, hey, we'll see what happens with it. Is there enough defense in that group? I assume that that's the reason why Derek Lively is out there, and that the reason why you might try to get a Josh Green or Derek Jones Jr. in that lineup as well. Is there enough defense with that group? Because last year that was clearly the issue for the Mavs.
Yeah, I think honestly the best way to put it is even before Derek Lively probably put on his hat on draft day, the team compared him to Tyson Chandler, and they've done that since like summer league preparation. They've said he's even taken leaps. I don't really know what practice facility leaps look like, to be perfectly honest. They say he's done everything they've asked on a daily basis, but he's worked with Tyson Chandler at the facility. He's done a lot of things like working on his touch, working on screening, defensive rotations, his timing, all that stuff, getting vertical, the long list of all the dirty work center stuff. So
sure.
They're portraying a lot of confidence in that. But I found it very interesting because when I covered Summer League, as a crazy person, I covered all 11 days of
Good
the
Lord.
Mavericks Summer League. And throughout that whole time, so Jared Dudley was the head coach for the Summer League team. And it was very interesting because this whole situation is kind of flipped. It was like Omax Prosper is ready to make an impact. It could take a month or two, but he will be a very helpful player for us even as a rookie. And it'll probably take Lively some time to develop. But now it's like Lively might be a day one starter for us and Omax will come off the bench. And it's just kind of interesting where it's not like a lot of game action has happened. It's just been practice facility time. And then kind of just strange settings for a team preparing for a regular season with 2 games in Abu Dhabi and a game against a European team in Madrid. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see early season. And, just historically speaking, teams do not fare well. Like I was looking at a stat from Matt Moore of Action Network. He calculated since like 2013, I think teams are like 13-3-1 or something along those lines of not meeting or basically hitting the under for their regular season win total. So like there's a lot working against them overall from a jet lag standpoint. Their superstars are dealing with day-to-day stuff already. And there's like rookies playing key roles, especially a defensive anchor. Like figuring out the NBA is one thing, but then having to play in a conference with Nikola Jokic, Anthony Davis, and like a lot of talent like that, it's going to be a very interesting thing for us to continue to hop on these episodes throughout the season.
I am very excited to now hear the 6-week check-in when this actually comes around, because this is going to be very fascinating to track throughout the year. But hey, I mean, we're gonna find out, man. Like this should be fascinating to see whether Omax and Lively can do the things that this team drafted them to do. Because I look at the rest of the roster, if they're not able to contribute, and I see, okay, off the bench you've got a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. or Maxi Kleba. Jaden Hardy is somebody who could definitely provide some punch off the bench, but I'm not necessarily, especially if Maxi Kleba isn't the defensive player that he was a couple of years ago, then this is not the greatest group defensively. I think maybe Dante Exum gives some boost there. Maybe Derek Jones Jr., like you mentioned, gives some boost there. But I seems a little bit low. So okay, well then let's focus in on a record prediction. I know that that's kind of difficult to do right now with like as many things are up in the air, but I had this team before the games against Minnesota. I had this team winning 45. I've bumped them down to 43 because I think that there's enough there that I'm concerned about. And now just continuing to hear this with you, there's enough there that I'm concerned about that this could be a slow start for the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I had to predict as of today, I would say a winning record, but it would probably be in that 43 to 45 range, as you said, because honestly, a lot will be predicated on their health, week to week, day to day. It's kind of interesting that, with Kyrie Irving finishing the season last year with plantar fasciitis and then now having a groin injury, uh, where he had to miss, or at least out of precaution, miss 2 preseason games out of 3. That's definitely not a good sign, especially as we said, like with the chemistry building requirement for a team that has like those 6 potential new rotation players overall.
Yeah.
That's very, yeah, it's going to be very like on the fly, very, very interesting to say the least. But yeah, it's just, there's not a lot of like, calling cards where you could say this team has, outlier ability to do this outside of Luka's excellence as a, creator and a scorer, and then Kyrie providing like a punch when Luka's on the bench, and, just within the flow. Beyond that, there's a lot of question marks. I guess you could say swing factors, if you will, where, like banking on rookies is never easy, especially when you're, having one of them be a defensive anchor at 19 years old, who on his draft report, adding like lower body strength and getting pushed around by bigger players at college basketball, like a calendar year later, might have to be a key factor guarding Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic, vying for playoff seeding or in a playoff series, or if they get to that point. And then you also have, on the wing, it's kind of interesting because Josh Green, they poured in a lot of development into him. And this is, like 4 seasons. They're not like clear cuts, like he's not like a clear cut starter where they're like, we're ultra confident in his abilities and we got our 5. Like it's definitely like an interesting thing with that. So, this is a team that could definitely use like a 6'8" wing that, like I guess you could say like a midseason trade team to watch, like with a player like a Jeremy Grant would probably be a very helpful player, depending on, finances.
Sure.
Not to start going down that
Yeah.
rabbit hole, but like they definitely are in a situation where they probably need that type of a player to add into the mix and kind of help, I guess provide some help on the wing defensively, and then also make it like a little more insulated for having a rookie defensive anchor. Because, just looking at their other center spots, I don't think you can come off of a 2022 Western Conference Finals run thinking you needed upgrades at the 5 with those 2 options, Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleba, still being on the roster, and saying that's a solution today. And then also having Rashawn Holmes, who I think a lot of people, I don't know if you like have seen his measurements, but he's more like 6'8".
He's a
like
shorter
people
guy
that aren't like super aware of his measurements. Yeah, he's a shorter guy, and some of the players, the opposing players that I talked to during the season last year, after they played the Mavs, like after the Kyrie Irving trade, they said they felt there was no defensive presence inside for the Mavs. So having, going from at least like a 7-footer with JaVale McGee, or like, Christian Wood at 6'10". I mean, he's a thin framed guy, but now going to like closer to 6'8" at the 5 would be a very interestingly, like, just odds, like sort of, this was our change that we have to rely on to get better defensively. Like it's hard for me to put into words in a sense, but it's gonna be A lot needs to go right with the rookies, I should say, if you're focusing on the Mavericks, and probably Josh Green needs to have a take a leap again after a career year last year.
Yeah, those are probably the only ways that I could see this team making a deep playoff run. I think that you got to hit on some of the young talent, and they have to be able to push some of the veterans that have been around for a little bit, but also maybe getting a little bit stale with guys like Powell, Hardaway, Kleba, even Seth Curry. Although he's a new option, he's been there before. It's going to be interesting. They need the athleticism, they need the size, they need the versatility that those guys provide. And if they don't get it, then it's gonna be tough. But we will see. He is Grant Afseth of covering the Dallas Mavericks for Dallas Basketball. Grant, thank you so much for stopping by. Really do appreciate it, and can't wait to check back in with you later this year.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and I really look forward to doing these routine check-ins. I've never done anything like it, so being a part of something with a lot of other people who cover the league as well, hearing their perspectives is something I'm very much looking forward to as well.
Thanks, Grant.